Well, if you're ready to get started, um, again, thank you for sitting down with me this morning and talking about Mary's Place. I really appreciate it. Just to start off, if you could just introduce yourself, what your relationship was and is to Mary's Place, what your role was, and how did you first get involved with Mary's Place?
Okay. Hi. So my name is Diane Sugimura, and at the time that I first got involved with Mary's Place, I was at the City of Seattle. I was the director of the Department of Planning and Development, and I had the opportunity to meet Marty Hartman at that time and some of the other staff. And the challenge was, since this was about what, 8 years ago, the challenge at that time was how to deal with the whole concept of the transitional shelters, opening them up as quickly as possible, but making sure that they are safe places for people to stay. And at that time, it was, as I recall at the beginning, it was really just a sleeping at night, I believe, and not staying during the daytime. And that was the challenge, that the city kind of had these rules that, you don't have to bring the whole shelter up to code if you have a limited use and they're only there so many hours and they're only there during certain seasons or something like that. And so it made it very hard for Mary's Place to meet the needs, which unfortunately was growing and growing. And so we tried to look at a way to make sure that it was still a safe space, even though it didn't have maybe all of the, say, fire alarm systems, but there are other things that you could do to make sure that they were safe. You could have people who were awake during the whole time, monitoring those kinds of things. So that was my first experience with Mary's Place, trying to make it easier, more flexible for them to have the shelters, build the shelters, but still making sure that it was a safe place for the people who were going to stay there.
Right. Do you have a favorite memory from working with Mary's Place? Was there a moment or an interaction that really stands out to you?
I have many favorites, but actually the one that hit me from the beginning, it was after we finally worked out how to make this shelter work and were able to get it permitted and so it could be opened. The staff and residents put together a great big thank you card, big like this. And they used, this is going to be a little hard to explain, but they used candy bars as part of their message. So it might, like if you used a bar, how wonderful it is, and they had multiple candy bars in this big card. I didn't save a picture. This big card to basically say, thank you very much for helping us out. It was just, it was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this. And so they all participated to help make that thank you card.
Oh, that sounds so sweet.
Sweet.
Yeah. Literally, yeah. What impact did you see Mary's Place having in the broader community of Seattle?
Totally amazing. So I had said that I first got started with them about 8, it might have been 9 even years ago, 10, I don't know. And at that time, as I mentioned, they were doing the transitional shelters, a place for people to sleep, just a short time kind of a thing. That was the need. That was what was being provided in the city of Seattle at the time. And then as the need grew and Mary's Place started looking at what do these women and families and children really need, the changes that were made from temporary shelter short term to where Mary's Place currently is and the housing. And just a few of the things that I remember is working out at the Burien shelter to get that opened up and how we were putting together bunk beds and everything and making sure everybody had great um, pillows and sheets and blankets and decorations in their room. And it became their room. It wasn't just a place to stay overnight. And then when you look at the Regrade facility, that one was so amazing when I actually got to see it finished, is and how the people lived in, I think they were called neighborhoods. So there were a cluster of people living in a small group of people living over in this area of the hallway or something. And it was kind of a neighborhood so that they could get to know the people around them. And it became a real home kind of a setting. And of course, now looking toward how do you get people into permanent housing as quickly as possible. So it's just that whole range of change that I got to see, which was totally amazing. And then, how they made it through COVID, I have no idea, but they continued making the changes that were needed so they could keep the facilities open during that important time.
Yeah. My next question, you kind of talked a bit about it in your last response, but how did you see Mary's Place change as an organization while you were working with them over those years?
I think it was constantly looking at what do people need and how can we provide it in a real personal, humane way, and help them grow and move forward with their lives. And that's the part that I find just amazing in terms of what's going on at Mary's Place.
For sure, yeah. My last question for you today is, was there one event, or if you can't think of one event, like a time period in the organization that you think is particularly important to the history of it?
Oh my goodness.
You can have a couple answers if you need to.
Because I kind of talked about it in terms of the change over time. I guess maybe one of them might be the opening of the Regrade in terms of what that is. And that they have all the, not only a place for people to live and grow in a community, but it's the way the meals work and the programming and the services and support that is provided, and the place where children can come after school and do their homework and all of those wonderful things. It's just there's just so many things. There's just so many things about Mary's Place that have been amazing in my mind. I wish everybody knew about it. I tell as many people as I can. And what I find is that when people, ask me what I'm doing in my retirement and things, and I'll say, oh, I had volunteered at Mary's Place and whatever. And it's kind of like, oh, Mary's Place, that's such a wonderful place. And I've always had people say things like that to me. So it's well known.
Yeah, and it's wonderful that people think that and appreciate it and everything. Yeah.
Sometimes I wear my Mary's Place t-shirt, which I got as a volunteer. And it's like, oh, do you work for Mary's Place? No, but I try to help out.
That's great. Yeah, it's been really amazing watching how it's grown in the community and just like grown bigger in Seattle.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for just answering those questions for me and just having this quick chat. If you have any other stories or memories about Mary's Place that you want to be a part of this, feel free to share them now. Or if you remember them a little bit later, go ahead and reach out to me.
Actually, a couple things. One is pre-pandemic. My husband and I would go every, I think it was Monday, to the day center and serve lunch. And that was so wonderful to be able to do that and meet the women at the day center. And I remember that we went on vacation. It was, I think, like a 3-week vacation, plus we probably didn't go the week before we left. Anyway, we were gone for a while. And when we came back, the women said, "Oh, we missed you." And it was like, oh my goodness. So that was just really, we were gaining from that as opposed to our, helping that. And also, I think the Holly Jolly, and I know it's changed for a variety of reasons since the earlier one, but that first Holly Jolly, I just could not believe it in terms of all the items that were donated and the way that people could come and do their shopping and wrap their gifts. And it was just an amazing event.
Mhm.
There's many of those.
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I've really enjoyed getting to hear your experiences and your stories. They were really wonderful. So thank you.
Well, you're quite welcome. I enjoyed it. And Marty Hartman and Mary's Place are just amazing.